Imagine a world where darkness and despair have taken root, spreading like wildfire across every heart. It's a time when the innocence of humankind has been overtaken by relentless corruption, where greed, violence, and cruelty reign supreme. People walk the earth, indifferent to the suffering around them, their eyes turned away from anything that does not serve their own desires. In this world, only one man dares to live differently, Noah. But his life of righteousness and integrity seems to be an exception in a world that's already lost its way. As days slip by, the whispers of coming judgment loom closer, but no one listens. Noah, a man chosen by God, stands alone against the tide of sin, carrying a message that no one wants to hear. The Creator, heartbroken by what his creation has become, decides to bring a catastrophic end to the world. Yet, even as he prepares to wipe away humanity's corruption, there is a glimmer of hope, a lifeline for those who are willing to believe. God commands Noah to build an ark, a vessel that will carry the last chance for humanity. The days turn to weeks and months, as Noah dedicates himself to this daunting task. With every wooden beam he places, he's reminded of the fate awaiting the world. Noah warns the people around him, pleading with them to turn from their ways, to embrace goodness before it's too late. Yet, his words are met with laughter, mockery, and scorn. The world sees him as a madman, an eccentric building a giant boat in the middle of dry land. But then comes a revelation that shakes even Noah to his core. God tells him that the end is imminent. In just 7 days, the skies will open, and the earth will be swept clean by an all-consuming flood. Noah and his family alone will carry on the legacy of humankind. 7 days, that's all they have left. And now, we step into those final days, watching each tick of the clock as Noah races against time, driven by faith and haunted by the knowledge of the fate that awaits everyone around him. How does one prepare to say goodbye to the world as they know it, to friends, to neighbors, to the lives that will be lost in a single, unforgiving wave? Join us as we delve into the last 7 days before the flood, a story of faith, sacrifice, and the power of a single man standing against the tide. Noah had always been a man set apart, different from those around him. In a world that delighted in wrongdoing, he chose a different path, a path of integrity, honesty, and reverence for his Creator. He walked the earth quietly, working the land, caring for his family, and speaking with a sincerity that few people of his time could understand. His was a life marked by simplicity and devotion, and while the world descended into chaos, Noah remained steadfast. God looked upon this man, this rare soul who held on to righteousness while the rest of humanity cast it aside. Noah's heart was not hardened, and for that, he found favor in God's eyes. It was in these quiet, solitary moments, when Noah would gaze at the heavens, that he felt something deeper, a sense that a revelation was coming. But nothing could prepare him for the message that would change his life forever. One day, as he stood alone under the open sky, a voice reached Noah's ears, a divine voice, powerful yet sorrowful. God spoke of his creation, of his deep regret for what humanity had become. The people had turned from him, embracing lives of selfishness, violence, and cruelty. And now, God's patience had worn thin. With a heavy heart, he declared that he would cleanse the earth, washing away the corruption that had taken root in every corner of civilization. Yet, in this moment of divine decision, there was a glimmer of mercy, a chance for salvation. God entrusted Noah with a mission that was as monumental as it was daunting: to build an ark. This ark would be more than a vessel. It would be the last beacon of hope, carrying the righteous and preserving life through the coming destruction. God provided detailed instructions, measurements, and guidance, emphasizing that this task would be Noah's purpose in the years ahead. The reality of his mission settled on Noah like a heavy weight. He would be responsible for building a massive ark, large enough to house his family, animals of every kind, and supplies to last through a storm the likes of which no one had ever seen. It was an overwhelming vision, a structure so enormous, so complex, that it would take a lifetime to complete. But Noah, with a heart full of faith, accepted the task without question. As days passed, Noah began gathering materials, shaping wood, and making plans for what would become the most ambitious project of his life. He worked with a sense of urgency, knowing that this ark was not merely a boat, but a lifeline, a promise that something of the world's goodness would survive. But as word spread, as people saw him laboring on this massive structure, the reactions were anything but supportive. Instead of curiosity or concern, Noah's neighbors mocked him, laughing at the sheer absurdity of his project. "Why build a ship on dry land?" they jeered. "Why prepare for rain when the sky is clear?" They saw his work as foolishness, a madman's dream that could have no basis in reality. Yet, Noah continued, ignoring the taunts, his mind set only on the task before him. It was a lonely road, but Noah knew that he was not truly alone. He had a purpose, a divine mission, and the Creator's guidance. And so, despite the doubts, despite the solitude, he kept building day by day, beam by beam, as he prepared for the storm that was drawing ever closer. As the years passed and the ark rose steadily from the ground, Noah's mission became known far and wide. With each swing of the hammer, he became a living symbol of an impending judgment that no one wanted to believe. The towering structure of the ark attracted curious glances, but these were usually accompanied by mocking laughter and disbelieving scoffs. To the people around him, Noah's labor was pure foolishness, the delusion of an old man trapped in a fantasy of doom. But Noah was not content to simply build the ark in silence. He spoke of the flood, of the judgment coming to cleanse the world. He pleaded with the people to change their ways, to turn back to God, and to find mercy before it was too late. His voice rang out through the dusty streets and open fields, a voice calling out for repentance. Yet, despite his passionate appeals, the people only saw his words as the rantings of a fanatic. They laughed at him, brushed him aside, and continued in their ways. Imagine Noah standing amidst a crowd, his hands lifted in warning, his voice hoarse from hours of preaching. He describes the flood to them, the torrents of rain that will fall, the rivers that will overflow, the waters that will rise higher than the tallest mountains. But to the people, it sounds absurd. They had never seen rain like that. They had never known waters that could cover their lands, much less drown entire cities. "Do you really think your invisible God is going to flood the world?" they jeered. "Why would he care what we do?" They saw no threat in the clear blue sky above, no reason to heed a warning from a man building a ship on dry ground. To them, Noah was a spectacle, a curious distraction from the daily grind of life. In their eyes, Noah was a man out of touch with reality. They could not understand his devotion or his fears. They had grown comfortable in their indulgences, in their disregard for the sacred. Some of them might have even felt pity for Noah, thinking he'd wasted years on a pointless task. The more he warned, the more they mocked, emboldened by each day that passed without a single drop of rain. And still, Noah endured. Day after day, he continued his work, his voice carrying over the noise of construction, a lonely cry in the wilderness of disbelief. His family stood by him, his sons and their wives helping to build, sharing in his faith, even as they shared in his isolation. To the rest of the world, the ark was a joke, but to Noah and his family, it was hope, faith, and survival wrapped into one colossal vessel. Time slipped away, and as each day turned to night, Noah wondered how much longer they would have to wait. He prayed that someone, anyone, would hear his message and be saved, but the people were too far gone, their hearts too hardened, their ears deaf to his warnings. It was a painful truth he had to accept. The world he knew was blind to its fate. So, he turned back to his task, blocking out the laughter and focusing on the mission given to him by the Creator. His strength lay not in numbers, not in the approval of those around him, but in the quiet confidence that he was walking a path set before him by something greater than himself. And no matter how hard the world tried to shake his faith, Noah stood firm, hammer in hand, gaze fixed on the ark, and mind fixed on the judgment that would soon arrive. After years of labor, warnings, and unshakable faith, Noah received the message he had been both expecting and dreading. God spoke to him, revealing that the time had come. 7 days remained before the skies would unleash their fury. 7 days for Noah to gather the final preparations, to bring in the creatures of the earth, and to ensure his family was ready to board the ark. It was the last call, and the weight of it settled on him like never before. On the first day, Noah gathered his family. Together they prayed, their voices mingling in a quiet chorus, a plea for strength and guidance. He explained to them that their days of hard work were coming to an end, that soon they would leave the world they knew behind. They listened in silence, each of them carrying the same mixture of hope and sorrow. They had followed Noah in faith, yet the reality of this moment was overwhelming. With the first day's light, the animals began to arrive. Pairs of every kind, large and small, moved toward the ark as if guided by an unseen hand. Lions walked calmly alongside lambs. Birds fluttered in from every direction, filling the sky with color and sound. It was a miraculous sight. Creatures that would ordinarily be adversaries were moving in harmony, drawn together by a force greater than any of them. Noah's family watched in awe as the animals gathered at the entrance of the ark, each waiting patiently for their turn. Day 2 dawned, and Noah and his sons directed the animals onto the ark. The structure was massive, with rooms and enclosures prepared for every species. The sheer variety of life was staggering, each creature representing the diverse beauty of God's creation. As the animals settled into their places, the ark began to feel like a world of its own, a miniature version of the life that would soon be washed away. Throughout the day, the people who had once mocked Noah stood at a distance, watching in silence. The spectacle of animals gathering from the far reaches of the earth piqued their curiosity, but even now, they refused to believe. Some murmured that it was a strange coincidence, a trick of nature. Others turned away, unwilling to confront the reality of what they were witnessing. On the third day, Noah's family focused on loading the final provisions. They gathered food, water, and supplies to sustain themselves and the animals through the unknown duration of the flood. As they worked, they felt a shift in the air, a stillness, a sense that the world itself was holding its breath. The once clear skies seemed heavier, darker, as if nature was beginning to mourn for what was to come. Noah moved through the ark, checking each compartment, making sure that everything was secure. His sons followed him, their hands steady, but their eyes showing traces of fear. They had grown up hearing of this day, preparing for it in their own ways, but now that it was here, the reality was almost too immense to comprehend. Outside, some of the people gathered closer, drawn by the spectacle and perhaps by a faint whisper of doubt in their minds. They saw the animals, the supplies, the careful preparations, and they wondered, if only for a moment, if there was truth to Noah's warnings. But the moment passed, and most of them returned to their lives, dismissing what they had seen as nothing more than an eccentric project. The third day ended, and Noah and his family gathered in prayer once more. Together, they thanked God for his guidance and strength, for the miracle of the animals and the ark. They prayed for the strength to face what lay ahead, knowing that with each passing day, they were one step closer to an unfathomable disaster. As they lay down to rest that night, the weight of the coming days pressed heavily on them. The countdown had begun, and the first 3 days had already slipped by. Now, only 4 days remained until the world they knew would be lost beneath the waves. As the sun rose on the 4th day, a strange tension filled the air. Noah and his family could feel it in every quiet moment, in the way the animals shifted uneasily, in the weight of the silence around them. With only 4 days remaining, each task seemed more urgent, every prayer more intense. They worked together with quiet determination, knowing that each completed task was one step closer to the day of reckoning. On this day, Noah felt an overwhelming urge to prepare his family mentally and spiritually. He gathered his sons and their wives, sitting with them in the shade of the ark, sharing the stories of his youth, of the simpler, purer days before corruption had swallowed humanity whole. He reminded them why they had been chosen, why their lives and hearts had been set apart. They listened intently, absorbing each word as they prepared themselves for what lay ahead. The ark was now fully stocked, each animal in its place, every corner filled with provisions for the journey that awaited them. It was no longer just a structure of wood and tar. It had become a sanctuary, a place of hope amidst the chaos. Noah walked through the ark once more, his hand brushing against the sturdy walls, feeling a sense of peace in this sanctuary he had built with his own hands, guided by divine instructions. He knew that this ark was more than a vessel. It was a symbol of faith, a testament to his trust in a higher power. Meanwhile, outside, the curiosity among the townspeople grew, though it was still mixed with disbelief. Some had started to feel an unease they couldn't explain, a prickling in the back of their minds as they watched Noah's family make final preparations. There was an unsettling quietness in the world, an unnatural pause, as if the very earth were holding its breath. Yet, despite this foreboding sense, most dismissed it, comforting themselves with the thought that life would go on as it always had. By the fifth day, the sky had grown darker, though not a drop of rain had fallen. Clouds loomed on the horizon, thick and heavy, casting long shadows across the ground. The animals sensed the change, their usual calm replaced with restless movements and quiet calls. Noah's family moved through their tasks with a sense of finality, speaking in hushed tones, their hearts and minds focused on the days ahead. Even the children, usually light-hearted, sensed the seriousness of the moment and remained close to their parents, their small hands gripping tightly as if seeking comfort. On the evening of the fifth day, Noah led his family in a quiet, heartfelt prayer. Together, they asked for strength, courage, and peace to face what was coming. Their voices mingled in the darkening air, creating a moment of profound unity, a sense of resilience that would carry them through the storm. For the first time, they felt a deep sense of closure, a readiness to leave behind the world they had known. When the sixth day arrived, the anticipation was almost unbearable. The sky was a roiling mass of dark clouds, swirling in ominous patterns. The townspeople noticed the change too, and a few gathered around the ark, their faces a mixture of fear, confusion, and disbelief. Some approached Noah, questioning him with half-hearted curiosity, still unwilling to accept his words fully. But Noah had no answers left to give them. He had spoken his truth, shared his warnings, and now, his mission was complete. With the day nearly gone, Noah led his family inside the ark, closing the door softly behind them. For the first time, they felt the weight of separation, the realization that they were truly alone in their mission. They sat together in the dim light of the ark, holding hands, bracing themselves for the unknown. As night fell on the sixth day, the world outside grew eerily silent. The people who had watched Noah all these years were left outside, staring at the closed door of the ark, a final, silent testament to their disbelief. And inside, Noah and his family prayed in the stillness, each of them holding fast to their faith, knowing that tomorrow, their lives, and the world itself, would change forever. On the morning of the seventh day, the air was thick with an uneasy stillness. Noah and his family rose early, their movements quiet and deliberate, as if even the smallest noise might shatter the delicate balance of the day. They had waited, they had prepared, and now, all that was left was to trust. They knew that by nightfall, everything they had ever known would be swept away. Outside, the sky was a bruised expanse of dark clouds, swirling in ominous layers. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, a forewarning from nature itself. The animals, sensing the impending storm, grew restless within the ark, their low murmurs adding a strange music to the tense silence. Noah, standing at the entrance of the ark, took one final look at the world outside. He saw familiar landscapes, distant hills, and the homes of those who had been his neighbors, his community. Soon, all of it would be gone. As he looked out, people gathered, drawn by a mixture of fascination and apprehension. The once dismissive crowd now stood silently, watching him. Some called out, asking him if he truly believed the rain would come. Others, their faces lined with fear, simply stared. A few of them finally seemed to understand the gravity of his words, their hardened expressions softening, but it was too late. Noah's mission was complete. His warnings had been given. He turned back to the ark, his heart heavy, but resolute. It was time. He called his family, each of them stepping forward with a solemn acceptance, leaving behind everything they had once known. As they walked inside, they held hands, finding strength in one another, knowing they were about to embark on a journey that would change the course of humanity. With a final, slow movement, Noah closed the door of the ark. The sound of the door shutting echoed in the stillness, a profound silence falling over the onlookers as they realized the barrier was sealed. They were on the outside now, facing the full weight of their disbelief. The skies opened almost as soon as the door closed, unleashing a torrent that was relentless, a flood that seemed to fall from every corner of the heavens. The rain struck the earth with an intensity that was both beautiful and terrifying. For the people left outside, the reality hit like a thunderclap. They pounded on the door, screamed Noah's name, begged to be let in. But Noah, surrounded by his family within the safety of the ark, could only pray. His mission had always been one of faith and obedience. Now, it was in God's hands. As the water rose, sweeping across the land, the world that had once mocked Noah was submerged in the waves. Inside the ark, Noah and his family huddled together, each of them aware that they were witnessing both the end of one world and the beginning of another. The sound of the rain, unceasing and mighty, was a reminder of the power that had brought them to this moment. And so, on the last day, as the floodwaters covered the earth, the ark floated, carrying within it the promise of survival, of faith, and of a new beginning. The skies roared as the rain poured down with a force the world had never known. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the torrent as it fell in relentless sheets, flooding the earth with terrifying speed. The waters rose, swallowing trees, homes, mountains. Everything once familiar disappeared beneath the waves. Inside the ark, Noah and his family held on as the massive vessel lurched and swayed, their hearts pounding with both fear and gratitude. As the ark lifted, drifting on the endless expanse of water, a new chapter began, a world washed clean, a second chance for humanity carried safely in the ark's embrace. As the waters covered the earth and the ark drifted on the vast expanse, Noah's story became a timeless reminder of faith, courage, and the power of a single voice standing against the tide. His journey through those final days speaks to the endurance of hope even when surrounded by doubt, and to the resilience it takes to follow a path of truth, no matter the cost. So, what lessons can we take from Noah's story today? Perhaps it reminds us that, even in a world filled with uncertainty, each of us has a purpose, a calling that may not always make sense to others, but can change the course of our lives and those around us. If you found Noah's journey compelling and inspiring, don't forget to give this video a like, and be sure to subscribe for more stories that explore history's most enduring lessons and the power of faith. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the greatest changes come from those who stand alone.